Okay, we'll get the council meeting underway. Welcome everybody to the June meeting of council. Particularly warm welcome to those members of the public seated in the public gallery, to members of staff and to our management team, and to those online. Thank you, Mrs. Phoebe. A warm welcome to you all. Significant amount of work to get through tonight. But before we do, I need to advise those present that the meeting will be recorded and live streamed, as you're well aware. That recording will be made available on Council's website following the meeting, and encourage those interested to watch that recording and to be engaged with council activities to the best of their ability. I'd also like to acknowledge tonight the incorporation into our agenda of the council's corporate values being safety, teamwork, accountability and above all, respect. A worthwhile addition to our agenda. I'm sure you'll all agree. And before I go on to the agenda, I'd also like to make a point of welcoming Councillor Lucy Gorniak and congratulate Lucy on her election as a councillor for Latrobe Municipality. And Lucy will fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Councillor Summer Metzger. Welcome and congratulations. Okay, councillors, working through the agenda. First one is apologies leave of absence, whereby Councillor Claudia Baldock has advised she is an apology for the meeting tonight. Can I have a motion to grant that apology, please? Councillor Wicks, thank you, and Councillor Fiddler. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? That apology is therefore granted unanimously. Thank you. Item 2.1 is the certificate of election by recount in June 2025, with a recommendation that the certificate of election by recount dated 2nd of June 2025 be received, and the election of Councillor L. Gorniak as councillor to fill the office of councillor left vacant by the resignation of Summer Metzger until the next ordinary election of council be noted, and in accordance with the Local Government General Regulations 2015, Section 40, the declaration of office has been read aloud and signed in the presence of the General Manager by one L. Gorniak. Can I have a motion to reflect that recommendation, please, councillors? Councillor Wicks and Deputy Mayor Mead. Thank you. Anybody like to speak to the motion?
Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. And those against? That motion is carried. Item 4 is the declarations of pecuniary and conflicts of interest, Local Government Act 1993, Section 48 to 51, whereby I, as the chairperson of the meeting, am required to ensure councillors who have a pecuniary or conflict of interest in any item of our agenda have declared that conflict and provide the appropriate documentation to the General Manager. I am aware a number of councillors have made a declaration, and we'll manage those conflicts during the course of tonight's meeting. Item 5 is the confirmation of minutes from our ordinary meeting held on the 26th of May 2025, with a recommendation that those minutes be taken as read and confirmed. Do we have a mover? And second, please. Councillor Fiddler I saw first, and Councillor Sims as seconder. Councillor Fiddler?
I believe it to be a true and correct record.
Councillor Sims? Any queries, councillors, in relation to the accuracy of those minutes? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. We next go to item 7, which is notices of motion. And as I have advised of a notice of motion and wish to move that motion, I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to chair this component of the meeting. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
First of all, I'll ask if we have a mover for the motion.
Happy to move.
Mayor Freshney, and a seconder, Councillor Martin. And Mayor Freshney, would you like to talk to the motion?
I would, and thank you, Madam Chair. In speaking to this motion tonight, I will reference elements of the report that you each have before you, councillors, but also add my personal views and opinions as Mayor and spokesperson of the Council, and based on my experiences over the past 5 years or so. In part, the report before you reads, and I quote, "This motion formally outlines Latrobe Council's strong endorsement of the Local Government Association of Tasmania's Lift the Tone campaign, aimed at addressing and reducing harassment and abusive behaviour towards elected members and council employees. Our council and many others are experiencing increasing levels of toxicity in public and political discourse. While ensuring that everyone has a voice, including engaging in debate, is a vital part of democracy. But when comments and actions shift from honest and respectful to dishonest and abusive, they become harmful. This intimidation of elected members, in person or otherwise, undermines democracy, prevents elected members from representing the communities they serve, and deters individuals from standing for election." When referencing the legal and risk implications, the report before you highlights that over recent years, Tasmania has witnessed an alarming increase in the frequency and severity of abusive behaviour targeted at local government officials and staff. This includes persistent social media harassment, disruptive conduct at council meetings, and sustained attacks intended to erode the credibility and integrity of elected members and employees. Online harassment directed at elected officials and staff has become widespread, involving defamatory posts, threats, deliberate misinformation, and highly personal attacks. Public meetings have occasionally become environments of hostility where verbal abuse, intimidation tactics, and even threats necessitate intervention from security or police to maintain order and safety. Councillors, when referencing organised attacks on credibility, the report before you calls out, and I quote, "Coordinated smear campaigns, frequently driven by small but vocal groups, target individuals and councils with the aim of undermining public confidence in local government institutions and personnel. Here in the Latrobe municipality, we are not immune from the intimidation, the bullying and harassment, and the smear campaigns referred to in the report prepared for tonight's meeting. Our council and our community are in fact a case in point. For over 5 years now, council staff, our management team and elected members collectively and individually have, in my view and experience, been subjected to an orchestrated campaign, a campaign I believe to be designed and determined to undermine our council, to divide our community and to discredit our leaders and destroy their reputations. The campaign I speak of was referred to by our former General Manager, Gerald Monson, when in May 2024 he issued a statement following the release of the findings of a TasCat appeal by the local family-owned company Insight Tas Proprietary Limited, challenging the validity of an emergency order issued by the GM, an order requiring the urgent evacuation of seasonal workers from a company-owned property in Arthur Street, Shearwater, the very same property where in February 2020 an emergency order was issued requiring the evacuation of up to 77 seasonal workers approved for accommodation at the property. In his statement, and I quote, Mr Monson said that despite what he considered to be intimidation and harassment he had been subjected to by the Baldock family, Inside Tas Proprietary Limited, and their representative, Mr James Redgrave, over the last 4 years, he would have no hesitation to again issue an emergency order if he was confronted with the same situation in the future. He said he could not live with his conscience if there had been a fire at the premise and a loss of life, end quote. Somewhat ironic, councillors, given today is the 25th anniversary of the Childers Backpackers hostel fire, where in the year 2000, 15 occupants of that facility lost their lives in a tragedy that Mr Monson, by his actions, sought to prevent from being repeated in our community. For the record, both Mr Monson's statement and the TASCAT appeal findings are publicly available. It was noted in the TASCAT decision, councillors, that Mr James Redgrave was the caretaker of the property at the centre of the emergency order. The tribunal dismissed Mr Redgrave's evidence as the appellant chose not to have Mr Redgrave appear in person and in doing so have his evidence tested by way of cross-examination. Why is that important in the context of tonight's motion? It's important because in my experience and opinion, Mr Redgrave has been the public face and central figure in the 5-year campaign waged against this council, our staff and elected members. It's important because earlier this month, on Leon Compton's ABC Radio Mornings program, Mr Redgrave attempted to further perpetuate the campaign against our council when making a statement which inferred that council had been found guilty by the Discrimination Commissioner of discrimination against him. A claim that is a gross misrepresentation of the truth and, in my view, profit to bring our council into disrepute. It's important, councillors, because Mr Redgrave, in referencing last month's council meeting, again misled our community when he claimed on social media, as James Harvey, that our council had gifted publicly owned land to the developer of a 75-lot subdivision at Shearwater, a claim that, again, has no basis in truth. It's important, councillors, because on a social media platform using the name James Harvey, he further inferred that an additional 5 lots had been added to the development at the last minute, and there was now a 14-metre setback on the adjacent land, claims that, again, have no basis in truth and are, in my considered opinion, again proffered to discredit our council and those elected to serve and lead this community. These are just recent examples of a concerted campaign that council has been subjected to, a campaign that has been punctuated by threats of legal action, by personal attacks, by claims of corruption and mismanagement, by the incessant questioning and speculative statements at each and every council meeting and AGM over a 5-year period, and at many of our public information evenings, particularly those at Port Sorella. The hallmarks of the campaign, councillors, have in my experience been deliberate misinformation, attempts to discredit our council, statements and assertions made to intentionally bring council and councillors into disrepute, and a clear intent to divide our community. It is my opinion public question time has been weaponised and used almost exclusively by Mr Redgrave and others as an almost indefensible opportunity to attack and discredit our council, elected members and our staff. Again tonight, councillors, our public question time is dominated by questions consistent with the campaign waged against us and our council, with the obvious exception being the genuine question request from Mr Philip Ward, and my apologies to Mr Ward. The report you have before you, councillors, references the personal impact of such campaigns under the heading Mental Health Work and Workplace Impact. And in part, councillors, it reads, the detrimental effects on mental health arising from sustained harassment cannot be overstated. Individuals serving in council roles, both elected members and employees, are exposed to stress, anxiety, depression and burnout as a direct result of continuous hostility. The emotional strain often extends beyond the workplace, affecting family life, interpersonal relationships and overall personal wellbeing. I beg the Chair's indulgence further, but for me personally, The campaign has for over 5 years now been incessant and has been, by intent or otherwise, permeated every aspect of my life, from my personal relationships to my work outside of public office, from social activities to my own health and well-being. No aspect of my life has been spared. My wife and I have been photographed at a social function, and that photograph then used on social media to belittle me, to infer a relationship outside our marriage, and to cause reputational harm. Provisions within the Code of Conduct have been weaponised against me, but in every instance, have been found to be without substance. I've faced multiple threats of legal action, including defamation proceedings, and been accused of threatening my fellow councillors with, and I quote, litigation and possible jail time. Complaints relating to me or my actions have been made to the Integrity Commissioner, the Discrimination Commissioner, the Office of the Director of Local Government, and the Minister for Local Government, amongst others. On November the 21st, 2021, the Examiner newspaper published a letter to the editor which suggested, among other assertions, that I was incompetent and corrupt. Later retracting those claims and apologising, as there was no basis for such claims. That letter, councillors, was written by an otherwise respected member of the Olston community, a person I'd never met, nor to the best of my knowledge had any interaction with our council. Nonetheless, a letter that achieved its intent. I've been subjected to claims of taking cash in brown paper bags. There have been claims of undeclared conflicts of interest as recently as the morning of April 23rd, Mr. Redgrave was witnessed taking photographs of me and my colleagues whilst I was working on a construction site on the corner of Charles and Ashborough Streets in Devonport. No facet of my life has been spared. Multiple attempts have been made to embarrass or belittle me. Anonymous posters have appeared in letterboxes in the Greater Portsmouth area, and I have been subject to highly personal attacks on social media, predominantly by a James Harvey. As a result, anxiety and apprehension are now my constant companions, and unbroken sleep just a distant memory. Apparently, the price to be paid for community representation and leadership. This is a small snapshot of what has been a long and vindictive campaign against our council and me in my role as Mayor and Council spokesperson. A campaign that has its roots in those decisions taken in 2020 and 2023, decisions made to place the safety, the health and wellbeing of people visiting and working in our community above all else. For context, councillors, the LGAT initiative to lift the tone of public discourse in this state has at its heart campaigns such as that we are being exposed to here in Latrobe and the behaviours contained therein that are simply unacceptable. To be successful, the Local Government Association's Lift the Tone campaign will need to be championed by elected members. We will need to lead by example and to take a stand by respectfully calling out behaviours that should never be accepted. Bullying, harassment, intimidation and deliberate misinformation have for too long been the weapons of choice, whilst respect, truth and civility in public discourse have been the unfortunate casualties along the way. Tonight, councillors, in supporting this motion, you have the opportunity to say enough is enough, to stand side by side with our staff, with members of our management team, both past and present, and with our colleagues across the state, to set a standard for public discourse and in our municipality. to set the standard, for public discourse in our municipality and across our sector, now and into the future. My apologies for my emotion. Councillors, I commend this motion to you and seek your support for the motion contained within the report before you. I thank you for your indulgence.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Freshney. Can I have anybody else around the room that would like to speak to the motion or make a comment?
I'd like to make a comment, if I may.
Councillor Martin?
Having also been on the receiving end of such innuendo, bordering on abuse, I guess I'd like to say, that I absolutely stand by our mayor and our team, and we choose to come on council as elected members to make a difference. No one turns up to council to do a bad job or to make a mistake. To err is human. To sit back and criticise and throw grenades is evil. I am proud of you, Mayor, and proud of the motion that you put forward, and I support you in this motion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Simms?
Yeah, I too have been subject to intimidation by a public member, which some months ago, and I have reported that to the mayor and the former general manager and also the Tasmanian police, which noted it. They couldn't do anything, but it was noted of what occurred. But it was, quite intimidating to me and to my wife. So I fully endorse what you've said, Mr. Mayor, and wholeheartedly back the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Simms. Councillor Brown?
Oh, no. I'm just smiling to myself. I'm saying, well, people get arrested. If they arrest me, I just get stuffed. Worry me. They can go. I understand that it affects people like that. That may be mistake. And that it affects me.
All right, and around the room, anybody else want to speak to the motion? Well, first of all, Mayor Freshney, thank you very much for putting the motion to council. I understand it's been exceptionally challenging, and it's really important that as we try to lead in our roles as councillors, that we do feel safe, our staff, for all the great work that they do for our community, and our greater region also feel that they can function well and are valued and feel safe in that environment. So for everybody, it is important that we change some of the conversation and a lot of the behaviours so that we all feel valued and there are positive approaches rather than some of the extreme bullying and harassment that many of us have received over a long period of time. I also want to make note of course, all other councils and the Local Government Association for putting together the Lifting the Tone across the state, because we all must work together to make change and change the culture that we've started to see increase over a number of years. All councillors do come to the table to do the best they can for community, and we do need to make sure that they are being cared for appropriately in the role that they set out to do. And Lucy, very much welcome you. And it's really good that you're coming at a time where behaviours are changing and that inappropriate behaviours are no longer accepted. So with that, I will put the motion. Did you want to? Yes.
If I could,
you want to close?
as mover, to sum up or close, as elected representatives, we can't stand by and not respond when placed in this situation. As community leaders, I believe it's incumbent upon us to step up and say enough is enough, to protect our team and ourselves from attempts to discredit us, to call out those who, for their own purposes, seek to divide our community, and to commit ourselves to respectfully challenging those who deliberately use misinformation to bring about reputational damage. Tonight, by supporting this motion, councillors, you get to draw a line in the sand and put on notice those who deliberately seek to bring our council into disrepute and who intentionally set out to cause harm to those elected or employed in the service of our community. Put simply, councillors, as the Deputy Mayor said, it's time to lift the campaign, and I encourage you each to do so. It's time to lift the tone, and I encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's the motion. That Council resolves to challenge the normalisation of abuse against elected members and council officers and uphold exemplary standards of public and political debate in all it does, and pledge support to the Local Government Association of Tasmania Lift the Tone campaign, and by surrounding the pledge, Council commits to promoting civility in public debate, refraining from abusive language and behaviour online or in person, and encouraging others to engage respectfully. So with that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mayor Freshney.
Thank you, and I'm fine to continue to chair the remainder of the meeting. Thank you for your consideration of that motion and your support. Next item on our agenda, I believe, councillors, is the questions on notice. Sorry, the public participation questions on notice from the public. And we have a number of questions and a recommendation. The recommendation being, if I can refer to it, pardon my lack of organisation. The recommendation is that council, in relation to the questions on notice received from Michael Baldock, James Redgrave, Shane Allison and Philip Ward, endorse the responses proposed and authorise their release. Can we have a motion to that effect, please, councillors? Councillor Fiedler, thank you. Is there a second? Councillor Brown, thank you. No need for discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? The motion is carried, and I thank you, councillors. The next item is public participation, questions without notice from the floor, whereby opportunities are provided for the members of the public to address council on any matter relating to council activities. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address council on any matter relating to council activities? Mr. Redgrave, please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor Freshney. Yeah, pleased to see the lift the tone, so hopefully we won't have a repeat of last Port Sorell public meeting. It should go both ways, I guess.
If you'd like to ask a question, Mr. Redgrave, that would be appreciated.
No worries. Agenda item number 10 has council's response that there is zero unrestricted cash on hand for the Latrobe Council. Only been 5 years since we've got to this point, but thank you. Given the GM is a CPA fellow, as stated in his introduction to the community last year, that insured ratepayers received the largest rate increase in decades, capped at 15%, with charges that saw some ratepayers collectively over 40% increase. How did Latrobe Council get to this financial position?
Thank you for the question. The response is as follows. As requested in the question reference, this does not include cash in the bank, funding or investments. As the finance report under item 15.1 of this meeting confirms, we have $8.9 million in cash and investments as at the 31st of May 2025, which is within the healthy band used by the Tasmanian Audit Office in their financial year 2023-24 report and our financial management strategy, long-term financial plan, target guidelines, etc. Referencing all cash in bank, funding or investments previously excluded by the question, we have approximately $8.5 million of unrestricted funds. Rate and fee increases are reflective of the increase in cost council is experiencing because of the high indexation of cost council is subject to in the market. The significant investment infrastructure over the past two to 3 years, including the levy, Camp Banksia, the caravan park, the mountain bike track and the Latrobe Recreation Ground upgrades, and equally significant increases in costs of managing waste on behalf of the community, resulting from the state government waste levy and other related costs. Latrobe Council remains one of the lower rating councils in the region and across Tasmania, with recent comparisons to Devonport, for example, seeing Latrobe Council rates materially lower. Positively, Council's long-term financial plan projections under item 15.5 on this meeting agenda demonstrates a sustainable future and underlying surplus projected over 10 years and cash balances within the healthy ranges. I provide that response to Sarah for the record. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
No other questions or queries? Then we'll deal with agenda item number 12. That is where, in accordance with clause 25(1) of the Local Government Meeting Procedures and Regulations 2015, as chairperson, I advise that council will now act as a planning authority. And in that capacity, we will consider agenda item 12.1, which is a development application at 8659 Bass Highway, Latrobe. The report author is Caleb Ball, the Statutory Planning Officer, who is with us tonight. And we have a recommendation, which I believe is to approve with conditions, if I'm not mistaken, and there are extensive conditions included in that recommendation. Do we have a mover? Councillor Simms, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Simms, I'm assuming you're happy to hand over to...
Well, I'm Caleb to...
Thank you, Councillor Simms. Caleb, if you would. For those watching, our statutory planners usually present on each of the development applications coming before council. Not something that happens in every council, but one we very much value, a process we very much value and appreciate. So, Caleb, welcome and looking forward to your presentation tonight.
Good evening, everybody. We have the application for 8659 Bass Highway, which was for the above ground fuel storage and signage on the site. As we can see there, that is what the existing site looks like, with the service station positioned in the centre of the site and the residence located in the southeast corner. And there is a strip of Crown land that fronts the entirety of the site. As part of this application, the applicant is proposing 2 above ground storage tanks in addition to changes to the facade. I have mentioned in the introduction to the assessment that the signage itself doesn't require advertising, which is due to the presence of the existing advertising on the site. Due to the requirement of the rural living zone, illuminated signage is restricted in that area. So a condition of approval is going on there to say that there should be no illumination of those lights on the site to help in assisting that. So the 2 existing the 2 above ground fuel tanks are located to the west of that existing service station with a trucker parking area adjacent to that. And that's a more in-depth view there. Given that the site itself doesn't have a proper frontage, all boundaries are considered as side boundaries, which is why that discretion wasn't invoked, which I did explain in the report as well. And there you have the signage that has been proposed. They've specified on those plans that there's no illumination of the end pole signage there. And the only sign that would be illuminated is the mood food on the facade of the building. However, due to those requirements under the planning scheme, there's no pathway for new signage within the bidding zone. So it is quite restricted in that regard. And there is just a manoeuvring diagram provided by the applicant for showing the tank reversing into that parking area that's shown. The main discretion of this application was the site coverage being over 400 square metres and the addition of hazardous materials within the bushfire prone area. And the main concerns that were raised there are, as they are there, the removal of tanks was missed within that application. However, my understanding on reviewing the documents, there actually is no proposed removal of any of the tanks on the site. However, a note has been added to the permit, or sorry, recommended to go on the permit and say, you know, they have to abide by the guidelines of the EPA. If it was. Yeah, yep. So was there any questions in regards to any of those? I did address all the other points within the reports. Was there any questions in regards to any of those responses?
So, Councillor Simms.
No, I'll have a recommendation and with the condition. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Fiddler.
Regarding the lighting of the sign.
Mm-hmm.
So that currently is a lit up sign
Okay, yep.
up there?
Yep.
It is?
Oh, I don't believe so. I mean, what they've applied for and what they've shown on their plans is to show that it's not illuminated.
Right.
The only illumination that has been applied for is the mood food sign itself, which is what I believe. In regards to sort of those requirements, the signage code is quite restricted within the rural living zone. So that if we're to assess that component of it saying lighting, there's no pathway for any signage at all to go through. So that's why it has to be conditioned to say that it's not illuminated to meet that exemption to allow for them to have that sign there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Abby?
Yeah.
Any questions? If not, I'll thank Caleb for the report and the presentation. And I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. The second application to be considered tonight is at 12.2 on the agenda. It's for a proposed two-lot subdivision at 23 Bundara Drive, Squeaking Point. The report was authored by consultant town planner S. Pearce, but I believe, Caleb, you might be taking up the reins, so to speak, on this one. The recommendation is for approval with conditions. Again, we're seeking a motion in support of or reflective of that recommendation. Do we have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Fiedler, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Martin, thank you. Councillor Fiedler?
Happy for Caleb to talk to this one. Thank you.
As difficult as that may be, given that it's not a report that you prepared.
Yeah, action. So today we have an application for an additional 2 lots at 23 Bundara Drive. As you can see there, it's quite a unique subdivision due to the constraints with the access to the site. There is a right of way to lots 1 and 2. I apologise, as this is the only size I could get it to. But there is a burdening easement on lot 3 for 1 and 2, with 2 and 3, having both internal access to the blocks themselves, and that's just the current area image of that site. The main concession discretion in both of is 7.1, development nor required to be carried into a use class. Lot design, which is due to the frontage length along Bundara Drive, and that the site is not capable of being treated by a reticulated wastewater system, so they are required to have that on-site waste management, which is typical in these rural living areas. The main concerns are listed there, which I believe Sally has provided a response to each of those, and I'm happy to elaborate on any further questions regarding those points. Obviously, being mostly wastewater concerns, it's not my area, but I do believe I'll be able to answer any questions in regards to it.
Mover, Councillor Fiedler.
No, it's quite a detailed report. There's quite a few, quite a bit of reading there, especially from Geoton. in regards to the wastewater and everything. So I'm happy to support the motion with its conditions as it is currently.
Thank you, Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Martin.
With regard to the representation, I just wanted to ensure that the concerns raised by the existing property owners, that everything is going to be okay for them with their livestock. We don't want to see any impediments.
My understanding is they have provided these reports to demonstrate that each site is capable of having a wastewater system within. Obviously, this isn't applying to have a wastewater system as per what this information is saying. They'll have to apply for those at each development application, essentially. So each of those wastewater systems are going to have to be designed to what the current standards are and designed accordingly. So they can't leach contaminants, that sort of thing. And if they were, that's when, you would have follow-up from council to make sure that the system is functioning correctly. And hopefully it wouldn't get to that point, given, maintenance and making sure that they're running up to what those standards are under those codes.
Thank you. Other questions or queries? Comment from me then, Caleb. The number of concerns raised by the representative is unusually high, but I am somewhat comforted by the explanation and the effort taken to respond to those concerns. And I am also able to support the recommendation with those conditions. But I want to reflect on the work done by the consultant planner and thank that person for the effort that's gone into addressing those concerns. It is, as I say, quite extensive, quite detailed, and it makes my decision so much more easier than would otherwise have been the case. So please pass on my thanks, I think that of Council Jan, if you would, to the consultant planner for the report. And Caleb, thank you for the presentation this evening. Are there any other questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? That motion is carried. And at 12.3, councillors, we have a recommendation that council cease to act as a planning authority. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Fiddler, thank you, and Councillor Wicks. Put the motion. All those in favour? And those against? That motion is carried. At item 13.1, councillors, on our agenda, we have the Building Department report for May 2025, with the recommendation that the report received for the month of May be received. A mover and a seconder to a motion of that effect, if we could, please.
Got me?
That would be Councillor Sims, thank you, and Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Sims.
I'm still disappointed. Pretty low figures there, and it's well below our red line, Mark. So I hope it just improves.
Yeah, the number of applications is on the average, but again, the reflection on the value of those applications is quite significantly lower than that average line that our information contains. So thank you for that, Councillor Sims. Councillor Fiddler, any comments?
I just thought it was good to see the numbers bounce back up from April.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can keep increasing towards the end of the year.
Thank you. Queries or questions, comments around the table? No? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Likewise, at 13.2, councillors, we have the Planning Development Application Status Report for May 2025, with a recommendation that that report be received. Mover and seconder, if we could. Councillor Sims, on fire, and Councillor Fiddler.
Wow.
Councillor Sims,
Comment.
no comments. Councillor Fiddler, happy. Councillors, report provided for your information. I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. I thank the team for the reports. From the Office of the General Manager at 14.1, councillors, we have updated council policies aligned with Local Government Regulations 2025 amendments. The report author is our one and only Corporate and Business Services Manager, Cameron Parsons. We have the report before you, the recommendations. Can we have a mover and a seconder to support the recommendations, please? Councillor Sims and Councillor Fiddler, 3 in a row. Could be a hat trick. Councillor Sims,
I hand over to the Manager of Corporate Business Services.
Cam, would you like to quickly summarise or make a comment?
Thank you very much, Councillor, through the chair. So these requirements are mandatory to ensure that we are compliant with the meeting procedures and local government general regulations. So passing these tonight ensure that we are compliant at the expiry of the current regulations. You can see the track change versions.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we are largely on track with a number of those initiatives relating to recordings, which we're already undertaking. Happy to take any particular questions relating to those changes.
Councillors,
I have no question.
No,
nothing around the table? Comments?
I do. I've got to find it, sorry.
While you're looking for that, Cam, I really appreciate the track changes version we received. Allows us to see the differences between the previous, the previous policies and the updated policies. I appreciate that.
Thanks to both Sarah and Amanda, who joins us today from Kentish, who have assisted in preparation.
Yeah. Certainly provides that clarity and understanding that makes it easier. You're fine. Councillor Wicks is fine. Anyone else? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? That motion is carried at 14 no. Apologies. At 15.1, we have the finance report for May 2025, the author of which is Andrew Copp, the team leader of finance. And the recommendation is that the report be received. If I'm not mistaken, do we have a mover and seconder, please?
So moved.
Councillor Fiddler as the mover, a seconder if we could, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Martin. I nearly had Councillor Magor, but most. Hand was, but yeah, nearly. Councillor Fiddler.
No, it's pretty straightforward. All there in the report for everyone to read.
Problem? Anyone else? Councillor Martin, happy? Questions, councillors, or comments?
I'd just like to say that while our finance manager is here, if Andrew wants to make any comment.
Andrew, my apologies. I should have referred to you in the first instance.
Yeah, no, through the chair, the only, I would take it as read, but the only thing I would add is in the report on debtors outstanding, I think it's on page 9 of the finance report, I'm not sure of the agenda page, it refers to an amount outstanding for over 60 days of $343,000. That included $340,000 grant that was paid, I think, 2 days after the end of the month, so that's now cleared. So if people are wondering what that was, that's now been collected. But yeah, I don't have any other updates unless there are any further questions.
Thank you. Anything else, councillors? No, if that's the case, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried. Again, thank you to the team, Cam and Andrew, for the work into that report. At 15.2, we have a review of rates and charges policy, again authored by Andrew, and again with recommendations. And I ask councillors for a mover and seconder for the motion in line with the recommendations. If you choose, please. Is there a mover? Councillor Wicks, thank you. And Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Wicks, any comments, questions? Further to add? Councillor Fiddler. Around the table, councillors. Should note that much of this information has been worked through in a number of workshops where councillors have had the opportunity to discuss and to understand the information provided. Again, appreciative of the work that's gone in by the team, provide that information both at our workshops and in tonight by way of a report. If there's no queries or questions, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. At 15.3, we have the rates remissions for 2025-26. The authorising manager is our Manager of Corporate and business. Again, this has been discussed previously. We have a recommendation that is detailed, and I seek a mover and a seconder in support of that recommendation. We have Councillor Martin and Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Martin.
Nothing further, as you say, it's been workshopped and we've seen it before.
Councillor Fiddler.
Nothing further from me.
Around the table. Again, consistent with our policy over previous years. If that's the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. Item 15.4, the waste transfer station charge remissions for 2024-25. Is that correct in terms of the title? It is. Thank you for the multiple nods. We have, of course, the agenda item and recommendation. That is that the report by the Team Leader Finance concerning waste transfer station charge remissions for 2024-25 be received, and that council grant waste transfer station charge remissions for 2024-25 for each of the licensed jetties listed in the attachment, totalling $1,064. Do we have a mover and seconder, please?
So move.
Councillor Sims and Councillor Fiddler in unison. Thank you both. Comments?
Just endorse the recommendation.
Happy to endorse. Thank you.
Likewise, we've been through it, all through our journey for the budget, so we're aware of what's in there to approve.
Thank you. Any queries or questions, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That motion is carried. Next item on our agenda is at 15.5, where we have for consideration the approval of the 2025-26 annual plan, budget and rates. The report author in this case is Andrew Koch, our Team Leader of Finance. We have, as I said, the agenda item, we have under the report, we have recommendations that are extensive and cover off the annual plan, the annual estimates, revenue and expenditure, rates and charges, definitions, exemptions, and the list is almost endless. But it does cover off supplementary rates and capital works programs as well, as I say, on an extensive list. We have a mover and seconder in relation to the recommendation. Councillor Martin, thank you. And secondary is Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Martin, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Only that, what a comprehensive report you guys put together. It's pretty impressive, and but I'll hand over to whoever would like to speak to it.
Yeah, before we go to Councillor Fiddler, I might ask Andrew if you wouldn't mind speaking somewhat to the report, either a summary or
Chair, just I guess some background, I guess, to the budget process, which kicked off in November last year with there's an invitation for submissions from the community. They closed in on the 31st of January, and then were followed by a series of, I think it was around 7 workshops from February through to June to lead to the where we are now with the budget being presented for adoption. The budget was developed in the context of Council's financial management strategy and long-term financial plan, which are also presented for, have been reviewed and presented for adoption as well as the agenda this evening. Also, the budget provides the resourcing for Council's annual plan, which is also attached for adoption. One of the key aims of the budget is to achieve an underlying surplus, which is the result after removing funding for capital. And the reason that's important is to allow Council to build up the financial capacity to respond to unforeseen events like floods, and also to be able to invest in new and upgraded assets. The Council's has prided itself on being a relatively low rating council, and I think it remains that way, but and Council's only increased its rates by as much as was needed due to rising prices, which one point there is that Council's prices do rise generally faster than CPI. But yeah, there's the rise in prices. There's also funding the operation and maintenance of new assets such as the Hawley foreshore, and also countering the loss of some financial assistance grants. So there's reasons behind rate increases. It's not done lightly, and council's only gone to the minimum it needs to meet that sustainability target of an underlying surplus. Waste management fees have also increased, and this is part of a strategy to transition to full cost recovery of the waste management function, and this provides a better cost signal to ratepayers about the cost of disposing of waste. While there's significant variations in rate increases due to different individual properties, categorisation and valuation changes, the average residential property will have a total rates increase, excluding the fire levy, which is levied by the state, of around $130.60, which equates to around $2.51 per week. The draft budget was released for public consultation in April. No submissions were received, and the budget's now presented for approval with just some minor variations from that draft version, which are highlighted in the background of the report. Yeah, if there are any, that's all I have. If there are any questions or comments.
Okay. Going to go to the seconder in this case, Councillor Fiddler.
I'd just like to once again thank the finance team, staff, and for the councillors that have done quite a bit of work over the last 5 months. And I will be endorsing this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Fiddler. Any other comments or questions? I would like as Mayor to reflect on, as Councillor Fiddler and Councillor Martin have referenced, the time and effort and the commitment put into this process by our staff in particular, acknowledging that at the same time as preparing this budget, they're also preparing a budget for the Kentish Council, and at the same time, and probably in part, preparing for the end of year of the current financial year and the reporting associated with that. It is an extraordinary workload, one that we're not inconsiderate of, but certainly we appreciate the effort, the commitment, the passion, and the professionalism that our staff have been exemplary over that period. I want to thank them personally, and through you as managers of your respective teams, please pass on our thanks as elected members to your teams for the effort that's gone into the budget. It is a first in that, as Andrew said, at the end of April we went out with a draft budget for public consultation. Unfortunately, we didn't get any buy-in to that. But again, I want to make clear and on the record that it is our intent as a council to continue to try to go out with a draft budget prior to the June meeting each year, and to have that input from our community, and we'll encourage that input in coming years and in future budgets. I'd also like to thank the elected members, as Councillor Fiddler alluded to again, in relation to the number of times we have met, the amount of time we've met and put into this budget process. It has been extraordinarily difficult given the cost of living pressures that everyone in our community is experiencing. But it is absolutely essential that this council remains financially viable, that our budget reflects our long-term financial plan and is considerate of our term plan and our strategic plans going into the future. I'd like to thank the General Manager for his input, his direction and the effort he has provided in ensuring that we meet the timeframes. Obligatory, thank you, Councillor Fiddler. The timeframes in which the budget is required to be prepared. Jason's burnt the midnight oil, I know. And Jason, we appreciate that. And Sarah as well, for the role she has played, which has been pivotal in getting this information out to councillors. So again, thank you. I also want to finally acknowledge that this budget and the rate rises and the fees and charges may well cause some significant concern for members of our community. If that is the case, please reach out to our staff, access the options we have for payment plans and raise your concerns. Please, as I say, speak to our team. They now have the frequently asked questions that we believe will be asked. They have information at their fingertips, and I hope and expect that they'll be able to answer the concerns and questions that are raised with them. Please, again, I ask that you be respectful, that is, our community members be respectful in their interaction with our team and considerate when they have those discussions. Again, happy to endorse the recommendations and the budget. Again, my personal thanks and that of our elected members for the work that's gone into it. Anyone else wish to speak before I put the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? The motion is carried, and thank you, councillors, for your unanimous support. Next item on our agenda, before I get too croaky, is 18.1, if I'm not mistaken, Sarah, and that is council workshops. And recommendation is that the information be received. A mover and a second, if we could, please, councillors. There will be Councillor Martin and Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Martin.
Nothing to add, only a thank you to you both, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, for
Remember, this is workshops.
workshops. I'm not thanking you for that then. But anyway, here we are.
Thought I should just intervene.
Yeah, no,
My apologies.
no, it's okay. I'll thank you later.
Okay. Any other comments, Councillor Martin?
No.
Councillor Fiddler?
Nothing further.
Around the table, councillors, in relation to that workshop item? No, if not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. At 18.2, the delegates report. I'm looking for a mover. Councillor Fiddler, is there a seconder?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Sims. Councillor Fiddler.
I will reiterate. Fellow councillor Martin was leading to, but I thank you for all the work yourself and the deputy mayor do on behalf of the council. Very appreciative.
Good job.
Thank you. Any other queries or comments or questions in relation to the delegates report? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried. 18.3 is the council decision status report for May. And the recommendation is that the status report of open council meeting decisions be received. Do we have a mover and a seconder to reflect that recommendation, please? There will be Deputy Mayor Mead and Councillor Fiddler. Surprise, surprise. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Mead.
No, there's nothing that we need to ask a question about or comment on.
Councillor Fiddler? Councillors around the table? No? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. At 19.1, we have the Port Sorell Advisory Committee minutes on the 29th of May with recommendations that the unconfirmed minutes be received, and it be recommended to council that the committee be placed in hiatus and council review the need for its reinstatement on an annual basis, and that agenda preparation for the community information evenings allow time for community groups and members to raise matters for potential inclusion. And a further recommendation that a formal statement of appreciation be issued to all Port Sorell Advisory Committee members, recognising their dedication, hard work and contribution to this committee. Is there a mover and a seconder to reflect that recommendation? Councillor Martin and Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Martin.
Having been a committee member of this group and being at this meeting, the decision for this group to come to the hiatus didn't come easily or lightly. but there has been a reduction of participants and membership over a period of time. And while their work has always been appreciated, they've come to the realisation that there's probably a better way forward for the time being, and contributing in a different forum in the public space was agreed upon, and I think that would be quite constructive for the community to see how it all evolves.
Thank you for that. Councillor Fiddler?
Just pretty much the same as Councillor Martin. I've been on this committee for 3 years, and just reiterate her comments regarding the advisory committee. A lot of the information that is brought to that is also brought to the community information evenings. So, yeah, let's hope we can work towards, if we need it in the future, bringing it back then, but for now, leave it for community information evenings.
Understand, and thank you both for your contributions to that committee, and for those members of our community who have participated over the years. I think the key, as you both allude to, will be the opportunity we provide for community members out there and groups to contribute to the agenda for those Ports Royal community information evenings, and that'll be, I guess, a key for the team going forward to provide that opportunity and to ensure that we are able to speak to issues to that larger audience and have them engage with us in a constructive and respectful manner. Having said that, anybody else wish to comment or reflect on work done by that committee? Nope. If that's the case, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And those against? The motion is carried. At 19.2, we have the community grants round 1 and the recommendations. And I'm buoyant because of the positivity in this report and the opportunities we provide to those community groups through the provision of these grants. So well done to those involved in determining the allocation of those grants. We have a clear recommendation outlining the organisations that are identified to receive those grants. And again, I thank the team and the staff for their work in determining the allocation of that funding. Is there a mover and seconder, please, for that motion? Councillor Simms as the mover, and seconder is Councillor Brown. Thank you. Councillor Simms.
No, it was a good selection, and it was a good cross-section throughout the community for young and old, just to help these organisations and help with the lifestyle and well-being within our community. So, and I know that they really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Simms. Councillor Brown?
Hold on, Gary, I'd like to do a few comments. I was going to say something.
Thank you both. I note particularly the intent to provide relevant feedback to those applications or those applicants who were unsuccessful. I think that's a really constructive piece of work to undertake, and I thank those involved for ensuring that that happens. Likewise, recommendation 3, that the criteria of the application guidelines be amended to state that organisations that already receive funding from the Latrobe Council via other means will be ineligible to apply for funding for that same program of activities. It seems to be appropriate. Any queries, further questions or comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. Last but not least, I believe, item 21, that the following items be discussed in closed session, and those items are listed for your consideration. Do we have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Wicks, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Fiddler. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried. And I'll now advise the meeting that we will take a 5-minute hiatus or break. But I ask you to please wait until Sarah has advised that the recording has been finalised before we